Have you ever felt invisible? Like your voice didn't matter, your dreams too wild to come true? What if I told you that one broken boy, with nothing but hope and a library card, turned his pain into power just by speaking English out loud in the streets? This is not just a story about acting. It's a story about survival, about second chances, and how one language opened the door to a brand new life. Let me tell you the story of Leo. My name is Leo. I was raised in a small, crumbling neighborhood, loud, dirty, and forgotten. Every sunrise brought chaos. Shouting neighbors, barking dogs, breaking windows, and slamming doors. My mother was always missing in the mornings, overworked, overwhelmed, or simply absent. My father? He was just a shadow I never knew. There were no bedtime stories, no warm hugs, no, "I'm proud of you." Just silence and survival. I became quiet, invisible. I learned to hide my hunger, to walk fast, to keep my eyes down. School wasn't an escape. It was cold, cruel, and full of fights and insults. I wore the same thin jacket every day, smelled of cold streets, and carried an old, broken backpack. The kids laughed at my shoes, my arms, my silence, and they walked away. Home wasn't much better. The fridge was empty. The lights didn't work. The nights were long and freezing. Sometimes my mom cried until morning. Sometimes she screamed at nothing. Sometimes she stared at the walls like they were whispering secrets. I hid under my blanket, covering my ears, counting numbers to fall asleep. In my dreams, I saw warm meals, soft beds, and laughter that didn't hurt. Then everything changed when I turned 16. One night, my mother disappeared. No goodbye. No note. Just gone. I searched every block, asked every neighbor, even checked hospitals. Nothing. Days later, the landlord kicked me out. No money, no relatives, nowhere to go. Just me, a worn-out bag, and shoes that barely held together. The streets were brutal. Cold benches became my bed. Cardboard became my mattress. Hunger became my shadow. But I found one place that saved me: the library. The library had heat, books, and something magical silence that listened. I began reading every day. I read stories about brave warriors, strange lands, and people who got second chances. I didn't just read. I acted them out, whispering scenes in corners, memorizing lines in the bathroom mirror. People outside said I was crazy. The acting gave me life. I kept going. I performed for the stars, for the rats, for the wind. I laughed, I cried, I believed. One rainy evening, I stood by the train station doing a monologue from an old movie passion burning in my voice. Some homeless men laughed and clapped like I was on Broadway. Then I noticed a man in a long coat watching silently. He walked over and asked questions: who I was, why I acted, where I learned. I told him everything like a flood bursting out. He gave me a card, told me to meet him the next day. I clutched that card like it was gold. I didn't sleep, just waited outside the building all night. The next morning I walked in trembling. The hallway smelled like wet wood and coffee. Upstairs, in a messy office, that man, Mr. Howard, greeted me with a smile and said, "We believe in second chances here." He asked me to perform something, anything. I was shaking, my voice cracking, but once I started, something took over. I poured out my soul, like the words were my only chance to live. When I finished, the room was still. Then, Mr. Howard clapped and said, "Kid, you've got something real." From that moment, everything began to change. He sent me to an audition. I went with trembling legs and a heart that beat louder than any train. I'd performed for casting directors, strangers in suits and cold, bright lights. I didn't know if I did well, but I had finally tried. And then the call came. I got a small role, just a few lines. But it was real. I bought clean clothes, new socks, and a warm meal. I performed on a real set, under real lights. And when they yelled cut, someone patted my back and said, "Good job." For the first time in my life, I believed it. From cold streets to small screens, from silence to stage, this journey wasn't easy. But it began with a simple act. Speaking English out loud, even when no one listened. That language, that courage, that persistence, it opened doors. So if you're learning English and feel stuck, remember this. Every word you learn is a brick. Every sentence you speak is a step. And every story you tell brings you closer to the life you dream of. Leo never gave up, and neither should you. After that first tiny role, I didn't become famous overnight. I didn't get rich or move into a fancy apartment. But something more important happened. I belonged. I belonged in that world of stories and scripts, lights and laughter. And more than that, I belonged to myself again. I spent days waiting for more calls, checking the phone booth near the library every morning. Some days were quiet. Some days were full of doubt. But I never stopped practicing. I acted for trees in the park, for pigeons on the bench, for taxi drivers stuck in traffic. I made people smile. Some stopped to watch. Some called me strange. But inside, I was building something real, a new voice. Then one day, the phone rang again. It was a woman from a small studio. "Leo, the director liked your audition. Can you come back next week?" I almost dropped the phone. I whispered, yes, like it was a prayer. That week, I slept better than ever under stars, but with a heart full of fire. The studio was bigger this time. Glass doors. Fancy people. Everyone walked fast. I walked slow. But I walked proud. Inside, I met two people. One of them, an older woman with glasses, handed me a short scene. Just a few lines. A young boy helping a stranger in the city. Kind, funny, honest. I took a deep breath and spoke. This time I didn't act. I became the boy. They clapped gently when I finished. The woman said, "Leo, you carry something special, something honest, something raw." I was offered the role, a real role, small but on screen, real camera, real team, real belief. That night, I bought a chocolate bar with my last coins, ate it slowly like a victory. I rented a small room, a real room with a bed, a window, and a working light. And I promised myself, "Leo, this is only the beginning." I wrote in a notebook every night scenes, monologues, dreams. I whispered English words to the ceiling like they were stars. Words like freedom, future, faith. I practiced accents, watched movies, read scripts I found in the trash. Every day I learned a little more. Every word felt like a step away from my past, and a step closer to something better. Then came a new audition, a film about street kids surviving on the edge. When I read the script, I cried. It wasn't just a role, it was my story. The boy in the scene slept on benches. He helped his friends. He believed in better days. I went to the audition shaking, but I gave it everything. Real tears, real laughter, real memories in every line. The director stood up, walked over, shook my hand and said, "Welcome home, Leo. You're not acting. You're living the story." The film was low budget. We wore second-hand clothes, ate instant noodles. But it was pure magic. When the film came out, people noticed. Not because I was handsome, not because I had a famous name, but because I was real. I started getting interviews, small ones, radio stations, blogs. People asked me, "How did you learn to speak English so well?" And I always answered, "I learned English by acting to myself in a library with no one listening but hope." Now I walk the same streets where I once begged for warmth, but now I walk tall. I buy coffee for boys sitting on the cold pavement. I tell them, "Don't give up. I was you, and if I made it this far, so can you." I teach them simple words. I hand them English books. I tell them to speak out loud no matter how broken, how strange, how slow. Because that's how I started. To you, the learner, reading this now, you may feel small. Your voice may shake. You might forget words. You might feel embarrassed. But every word you try is a seed. And one day, that seed will bloom into something beautiful. English is not just a language. It's a key, a path, a light. And your story, it's just beginning. Years passed, slowly, beautifully, painfully. I didn't become a superstar, but my name, Leo Rivera, started appearing in film credits. Small roles, honest roles, and most importantly, roles that mattered. I kept learning, kept growing, and I never stopped using the tool that saved my life. English. The same language I once whispered to streetlights. The same language I read under the library roof now became my bridge to the world. One day, a small school invited me to speak to students learning English. They had watched my film about the street kid. They didn't know it was real. When I walked into that classroom, I saw myself in every face. Young boys and girls with broken grammar, shy eyes, nervous hands. But behind those stumbles I saw fire. So, I began speaking not with perfect grammar, not with big words, but with truth. I learned English when I had nothing. I didn't speak it to pass an exam. I spoke it because it made me feel alive. They listened. I shared how I acted monologues from movie scripts just to remember new phrases. How I read out loud to myself in the mirror to feel less invisible. How one sentence spoken with emotion was more powerful than a perfect one spoken with fear. That day, something changed inside me. I realized that I didn't just want to act anymore. I wanted to teach hope through language. So I started small. I created a free acting and English workshop under a bridge where I once slept. No desks, no whiteboards, just hearts, voices, and courage. We sat on cardboard, used scripts printed from the library. We practiced emotions, anger, joy, fear, love. We repeated lines from movies, but with our own soul. I taught them this: say it like it matters. Don't chase perfection, chase connection. If your voice shakes, it means your heart is speaking. Soon, more came. Homeless teens, runaways, shy kids from broken schools. They weren't just learning English. They were learning how to believe again. Then something magical happened. A local news crew heard about the workshop. They filmed us kids laughing, crying, acting under bridges, speaking English with courage. The story went viral. And suddenly people reached out. Teachers, actors, language coaches, even former street kids who now had jobs. They said, "Leo, we want to help." So we formed something new, the Streetlight School of Hope. It wasn't fancy, but it was powerful. Every lesson included a short English phrase, a scene to perform, and one message: your voice matters. Some of my students later got roles in plays. Others passed English exams. But what mattered most, they stood taller, spoke louder, smiled wider. Now, dear learner, let me ask you, are you afraid of speaking English because your accent isn't perfect? Do you stop trying when you forget a word? Do you feel too old, too late, too far behind? Let me tell you a secret. Your voice is already good enough. Your mistakes are proof that you are trying, and trying is braver than staying silent. I, Leo, the boy who once acted for the rats, now stand on real stages. But the biggest stage I've ever known is the heart of every learner who refuses to quit. So I leave you with this. Learn English not to impress. Learn it to express. Speak not for applause, but for release. And every time you say something with truth, you are winning. You're not just learning English. You're building a bridge to the life you deserve. Speak your story just like I did. And remember, this is not the end of Leo's story. It's just the beginning of yours. Thanks for watching English Journey. Every word you speak brings you closer to your dream. Like, share and subscribe for more stories and lessons. Keep learning. Keep growing. Your journey matters.